Hey, thanks for filming me.
I know. I gotta show Sue this.
And actually, it's a good lighting.
Yeah. Well, I like them against these dark walls too.
Oh, me too.
I unfortunately mine are hung against a white wall, but I like the darker walls better.
Oh, me too. Well, one time at the Masters show, they literally had like a super white background, and I had a painting in there that was like a little bit off-white, but off-white against pure white.
Right.
It ruined what you were trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's hard when
Really
you're.
one of mine. It's because they use the abstract and the objective together, where it works beautifully. You know?
Just a rhythm, just like great music.
Well, I'm a friend of.
So are you? I've heard about your book. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Design.
These are so cool.
I was gonna get down his case. Say, hey, you're gonna start trying to dominate the wildlife world now?
Yeah, that's right.
No, but he
can do anything.
But it's part of outdoors. It's part of the.
Well, he's done so much wildlife
Yeah, I know
sculpture
he
that
has.
I mean, he just knows the anatomy. I mean, it's just amazing. He'd dominate anything. A good artist can do anything, you know. It's just what you're interested in.
Such a cool design right there, man.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, it sure is. Isn't it cool?
it is so cool.
Well, he's in his 80s, you know,
That's
getting
crazy.
up to the
I remember. Well, I've known him for years and years, but you know, that younger guy. But it's crazy.
I've known George for probably 30-something years, so maybe 35 years. I was there when he did his first painting after not having painted for 30 years, I think he said.
Is that right?
Yep.
I don't know if you knew this about me, but I started in sculpture.
Oh, really? I didn't know
And then I
that.
went to painting because too much of the process of sculpture was out of my hands.
Right.
You know, with the foundry and everything, and then I paint like I sculpt. I just like seeing shape immediately. So I was always just looking for shadow shape, light shape, and building structure right away.
That's neat that you started out as sculptor.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still do it. I love it, but and I think it's easier for a sculptor to transition into a flat artist in painting and drawing because they understand shadow and shape, highlight, cast shadow, reflected light. You know, they see it in their sculpture, so then it helps them when to see the form come off the page. At least it was for me.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I've never been like just drawing line kind of drives me kind of batty. Kind of
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like shape.
Yeah.
I mean, I use line as well, but shapes for me
Yeah.
is kind
That's
of how I
neat.
see it.
That's pretty cool.
This is my dinner.
Oh, you buy
He's eating up there.
and your breakfast.
I mean, no, I think you're feeling this because of the impressionistic feeling that you're getting in this. I mean, it's all there, you know. So I think you're on the right track.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have to eat more?
Yeah, my mother has diabetes.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of what this guy does over here. You know, I still haven't seen your originals yet. I've been.
I thought it was the frost on the glass, right?
Drummers
Tough too because
all night,
you know, you're not
24/7.
initiated family members saying, "Oh, the nose is too big," or
And the
something
drumming
like
was
that.
so
It just ruins it
impactful.
for people.
Actually, after about
You gotta
6
have
hours of
faith
being out there
that,
with them, my sternum would be hurting
uh,
because your whole body would be picking up this vibration.
Oh.
But during a break, they were sitting around this campfire, and I went, wow. I mean, 'cause I didn't want to do all these drum thing, but I like the idea of the drum being in the for a shape against all the. Now they're called Phariseos with the white paint on them. The soldados are the Christians, and the Pharisees are I guess the non-Christians. Anyhow, so they have this whole dance of a battle between the Pharisees, Phariseos, and the soldados. So it was beautiful ceremonies.
Oh,
And I just love how that light picks up from that low light of a fire, just picking up the sculptural forms of their bodies.
I love this one. I remember seeing this a long time ago. I don't know if it was in an article or one of your catalogs or something, but I mean, this was an early one. I think Mr. Park showed it to me in school
We did?
from some sort of catalog. But he would get these catalogs. That's where I first saw your work, was
well,
Mr.
you
Park's,
said you saw it
and he
from
would
Park,
say
yeah.
that he sent me over to, was it the O'Grady? They had a
O'Grady
gallery,
Gallery, yeah.
and that was
33 North Michigan.
exactly. I saw things over there, and it was so cool because he was like, oh yeah, this is from the guy from the Academy, and it's just incredible,
Well, back when drawing was important at the Academy.
Yeah,
Not that way
yeah. Oh no, yeah, but I think that's where I first saw that was from
I
something.
think there's actually violet on the top of a guy's pectoral muscles on the shadow side. I haven't gotten close to it, but I think I used to have a little bit of violet.
So this was a 20-hour ceremony, do you say?
Well, no, it goes on for the whole week, 24/7.
Oh my
But
gosh.
there's certain ones that I didn't want to miss, so I'd be up for 20 hours, or I mean, you'd be rummy by the time the week went by.
Yeah.
But you just didn't want to miss anything. I mean, stuff. People think, okay, these primitive people have this boring life. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Their celebrations make our stuff look like it's boring.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes our football games look like, okay, yeah, let's go out and get a beer.
Well, because it's not as passive, it's
Yeah.
not like sitting there watching TV,
Yeah,
it's
right, exactly.
yeah.
yeah, I think the reproduction doesn't do this quite
Oh,
justice.
I
It
know.
would be hard to photograph that and do it, but
Yeah,
the
I think you're
reproduction
exactly
just
right, Greg.
this is better.
Well, it ought to be. I mean, yeah.
It's an
The
amazing.
original ought to be better.
Yeah, but sometimes the reproductions are. Well, this one is more off. I think probably harder to do.
We're having French drains put in, if you're wondering why our backyard's such a mess.
It's a lot better than that.
I thought it was pretty nice. You ought to see my backyard. This is whatever, a long time ago. So we had everything was hung in like 2 rooms. I mean, I think I had about 40 pieces or so. And so I was walking around there with Jerry, and he had his hands in his pocket, totally disinterested, I think. And so he doesn't say a word. We're almost through the whole show, and I says, well, Jerry, what do you think? He says, well, I don't like the frame on that. I don't like that dark frame on that painting. And I says, well, there's a reason for it. If I put a light frame on it, because you're looking into a dark cabin, it'll allow your eyes to adjust to be able to look into that cabin. Well, okay, but I told you what I thought, and we walked away, and I was the only thing that was commented on for the whole show. It took me, by the way, 3 years to do. Well, thanks, Jerry.
Yeah. A couple of those, the goat girl and the sword came a little later.
Yeah.
But the firelight one,
Yeah.
were all in that. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the serigraph of the sword. George gave that to us. It was very generous of him.
I have another story, by the way. Where was I going with it? Except, I just had a mind escape me.
I do that all the time.
It'll go.
I have to get it out fast.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, what was I gonna say? Oh, well.
About the sword one you're talking about?
No,
The story?
no. Okay, this is about Clark Hewlings.
Mm-hmm.
So on this particular bigger, thing, Jerry did send out a lot of invites. I mean, there's a bunch of people there. I mean, it was packed. But Gail Maxon, who was one of his main sales gals, she said, George, let's go up to the Folk Art Center because there's supposed to be some Tarahumara up there doing their weavings and pottery. And I said, well, great. So we get up there and we talk to the director. What are the chances of getting these Tarahumara to just walk through the show? I mean, we make an offering to the to the center just for they would help out, So here we are. The whole thing is packed, and 30 Tarahumara, they're all about that high, come running through. The women with these beautiful dresses on, the guys with these big billowy sleeves, and everybody's going, oh my God. They just couldn't believe it with this Tarahumara show. By the way, everything's sold out. People were saying, hey, I'll give you 3,000 more for that than what you paid for. I mean, I'm going, are you kidding me? So anyhow, then Clark Hewlings comes up to me, okay, Carlson, how did you ever get this one accomplished? I said, well, we didn't plan it. It just happened to be in town.
I think I heard the legend of that. They said that they jumped out of your paintings and ran through and then escaped. I think that was the story I heard.
You did get their souls.
That's good.
Yeah, you had captured them and they escaped your paintings.
That's what they always worry about.
That was the souls.
I'm looking at this, Carl, and seeing about Taylor.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
All that rich background stuff,
Yeah.
texture. And,
Yeah, and he's about the only, he can do it.
yep.
You can.
Tina Stanky.
Yeah.
Love Bettina
He
Stanky.
was a great mentor. When a bunch of us lived in Taos,
Oh, you're
you could ask her any question. She was always helpful. She was always very supportive, because it could be discouraging. I mean, not making any sales, and okay, how do I get through the next month? Don Blair, her husband, he would set up I don't know if you had this happen, but he'd set up a little ledger and give you like $50 at a time, because my rent was only $50 a month, and then I would buy bags of pinto beans with. My wife says, now I know what's the problem. But anyway, I'd sort through the pinto beans, getting all the gravel out of it, because I'd buy it from the Mexicans, out in the field. Anyhow, but because he keeps his ledger, then maybe work it up. It wouldn't go too far with you, but it might be up to $200. But then he'd finally sell something, and he'd call you in the office. Okay, here's what I've given you. Here's what I sold the painting for. You have, maybe $50 or $100 coming to you. Well, it kept you alive. I don't think there's too many dealers like that anymore.
I think Dan Walter would help out the artists if they were in
Yeah, he was
bind,
good.
that they would buy.
He was very good.
their
I need
pieces.
to shoot that. Whoops.
Yeah, Don Blair apparently had a figurehead from a ship that my grandfather gave him years ago in Aruba. Just a little bit
Whoa.
of trivia.
Wow.
No, that's not trivia. That's great.
Do you
I
know-
also like your.
Do you know where this painting is from? Is this from?
I think Guatemala. I think.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
like-
that's what I was
looks
gonna say
like
because
Guatemala, yeah.
we've gone to Guatemala a lot and it totally looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there's a couple Martin dailies over there around the.
Oh no,
Yeah.
go ahead.
You see that one line?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, the one.
The one on the left here. Look at that thing. That- This piece here is called the Hopi Snake Gatherer, and back at that time, back in the probably the 60s, you were allowed as a tourist to be able to see the snake dance. Now a tourist can't go to these ceremonies anymore, but it's where they basically gather rattlesnakes out in the desert, and they bring them in. And the idea is to have they felt that the spirit of the rattlesnake went up to the rain gods and worked something out and gave them rain. But they can only do this if they have the rattlesnake in their mouth. So the head of the rattlesnake would be about 6 inches from their head. But what happened, a lot of ethnologists felt they would tease the rattlesnakes until they were so worn out that they were just exhausted because they had spit out all that poison. So at any rate, but what would happen in the ceremony, and this is the part that was really neat, the kachinas come out from under this kiva, and these guttural ancient sounds are coming out of, I mean, I don't even know how they did it. And they start walking around the plaza, their particular, I think this was like second to Mesa in Arizona, Hopi Mesa. Anyhow, so they would walk around this thing, they grab a rattlesnake, and they had to go around four is always important. They go around 4 times, and then when they finished, they felt that was the energy, then they would let the snake just drop it in the plaza. Now all of us are standing against the adobe walls. I was about, I think at that particular one, I think there's maybe 2 other Anglos that were there. Everybody else, was a Hopi. And so I'm standing like this against the wall, and there's people here this way. And then there's another row in front of me. And then the women were there, and then the kids were sitting on the ground in front of that. So, and this is why I did this thing. So this snake gatherer is supposed to be picking up these rattlesnakes. Well, this one rattlesnake decided he liked the shady side where I was, and so he starts coming in my direction, and I'm not afraid of snakes, actually, so I'm standing there going, okay. Well, pretty soon all the kids leave, they scatter, and then pretty soon all the women scatter, and then some of the men in front of me scatter, so I'm just, and the guys on both sides aren't gonna give an inch. I said, well, I'm not gonna act like a jerk and jump out of here, just okay, let's cool it. That rattlesnake got to within about 2 feet of me, and then the snake gatherer came by and picked it up. I said, hey, that's Indian humor.
You passed the test. You passed the gringo test. Yeah.
Big joke.
Yeah, big joke. Well, there's another fun. I was at this trading post, and the Indians had a lot of hard time paying for their pickup trucks, so the repossessors would go out, and so they said, well, where does Johnson John live? This is really funny, and so. Where is Johnson John and live? I guess that's what he did say. And so they said, okay, you go out about 10 miles and you take a left at whatever thing it was, and then you go another 3 or 4 miles down through this canyon, and then maybe another 300 yards to whatever. And so the guy takes off and he goes all the way out there on this hot day. He comes all the way back. He says, well, I didn't see Johnson John out there. Oh, he's been in here in the trading post all day.
You just asked where he lived.
Know where he lived.
Yeah, you want to know where he
Question
lived?
directly. That's where he lived.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's what he said. Well, I told you where he lived, but you didn't ask me where he was.
That's funny.
So Indian humor is pretty subtle stuff. Yeah, I've got some Ammonites. The ones I have are actually still really roughed out. God, I love that look. I love that look too, but but that was a fun story with that's why I could have done it with the rattlesnakes in the mouth and all that, but there's something more rhythmic I felt about this idea.
Dancing.
Boy, I love your pottery collection. Ooh.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
good stuff.
Yeah, this was a commissioned one also. This is the last one, the Saint Vrain. And again, we had no stipulation as to size or subject. The Saint Vrain is toward Estes Park, I guess.
Mark and I painted several times on the St. Vrain, so we were out there one winter. And one of the small paintings that I did is it's in my book, and I used a part of it, a detail of it for the cover, the dust jacket for the cover of my book. And it was when Mark and I were up there painting this one afternoon. So.
That is amazing. I love the way he did that. Just even that section with the twigs.
Artist. What a neat.
Yeah. It's fossil, yeah.
Yeah, fossil.
Yeah, God does some good pieces too. He does some very good stuff.
Not bad for a beginner. Well, no, actually, he's had billions of years working out there.
I think fossils are a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
nice chair.
Yeah, really.
Well, always austere, keeping it right down to the.
Hey, George, you want to tell us the story behind this one?
Well, I will, Scott. out of my 4 years of living with the Tarahumara, basically 4 months out of each year, but this is an Easter ceremony, and hundreds of Tarahumara gather, and sometimes I would do the pastels of their ceremonies, but just as much I liked the spectators watching it. And like this guy here, to me was a real dandy. He just had this great billowing sleeves, and that late light was hitting it. And oh my gosh, I just couldn't believe all the combinations of shapes, lights, temperature changes. And that's why I did that one. But I was able to get I always went down there basically either the Christmas ceremonies or the Easter ceremonies. So you're going to get the biggest range, because you still had everyday life to do between ceremonies. But as you know from your travels, boy, when it's during the time of their actual celebrations and the religious,
So were you shooting? It would have been like 35 millimeter film back then.
Back then, I tried to shoot 100, so you had really good saturation of color. And the trouble is, back then, I mean, I didn't have any air conditioning in a car. And actually, I had kind of a neat, I won't belabor this, but I got a 3/4 inch piece of plywood for my bed. And this is crazy, but I had 4 tanks of, or 5-gallon cans of gas. And that became the pedestals. And it brought it up high enough so I could put all my camp stuff under it. And I had a tent, that was a wall tent that was 10 by 12. And so I could keep a fairly clean tent by not having junk all over it. Then I made a little thing out of shelves for all my foods and so forth. And I had a rancher build me a little wood stove in there.
That's cool.
So that's how I lived for 2 months at a time. Basically it became 2-month trips each year. And
how many sketches do you think you would do each time? Must have been hundreds.
Sculpture-wise, I did at least 20 to 25. I use very few of them. But they were all on location. But everything I've done that's bronze, except for the big, there's only 2 big ones. But everything else is exactly what I did on location.
That's cool. Wow.
And then I didn't do pastels. You can't do pastels out in the field. But I would do sketches. I did a lot of watercolors of them.
He's fun to be around too.
In fact, in my book, I think I have a couple of watercolors.
You have a few of them in there. It's pretty neat to see.
So that's kind of what they were. Field sketches. Very loose.
That's so
very
cool.
Immediate, and boom, it was over.
I think about that now because our first trips that we would go to China and places 99 and these things, there for a month, and was like, okay, we can only bring 2 rolls of film per day because we had so much to carry, and it was like torture saying, okay, I gotta. In fact, a lot of times Sue would say I was taking something that was more artsy of a photograph. She's like, would you actually paint that? Save your pictures for ones you will paint, because it was so hard to limit yourself.
To back up that idea of how I even got that film out of there, because I had to stay cool back then. And so actually that's why I bought all those big Tarahumara clay pots. They're big pots, 30 inches across. And any clothes that got so dirty, I knew I wasn't going to wash it or anything. So I would wrap used, shot film. I mean, it'd be probably like 10 or 15 rolls in that, like a pair of old Levi's or whatever. And put that in that clay pot. And under that, again, that bed of mine. So actually, it stayed really cool. And by the time I was ready to leave, I had all my film packed in fact, even at the border, the American, when you cross the border, they thought I was a trader going down there buying stuff to sell. And so they wanted to tax me. I said, well, you can tax me if you want, but I mean, I'm an artist. This is going to be in my studio. So they finally let me go.
Well, didn't one time they wanted to take apart your sculptures because they were worried you were
one guy thought I was a drug dealer, and he was a rookie. He probably was on the job for about a month, and he said to this veteran guy who's probably been there for years, and he said, I know this guy has drugs. And he went all through my seats, the back. He had me pull everything out of the back of the Ford pickup. So I'm out in this hot sun and Juarez, and I said, well, we can do this, but just so you're aware that I'm a professional sculptor, and this is how I make my living. Well, we're going to have to cut these in half. I said, well, all right. We're probably going to have to get into a lawsuit then, because I'm not going to just have you get some whimsical idea. Well, finally, the veteran guy said, whatever his name was, hey, listen, I think this guy is okay. Just let them go, because if I didn't get them back in the truck, they were going to start melting. So finally, this guy let me go. Oh,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All these
Things-
stories we get.
things you have to
Oh my
go.
God. Yeah.
Be an artist.
Yep. Oh my God.
By the way, I was able to get into their homes, which is very unusual.
Oh, yeah.
These are very secretive people.
Yeah.
But the only reason it worked is because I came down to Mexico to, there was going to be a guy named Raul, who was a friend of Ramon Kelly's, and he was a sculptor in Juarez. And so Raul says, yeah, come on down, Jorge, we'll go out there and do our thing. So I go down and brief up the story a little bit. So I was there for about a week, and every day says, oh, poquito more, yeah, but we'll trabajo, simple, we'll be ready to go. Finally, Friday comes around, he introduces me to his wife and 5 kids. And I go, Raul, you can't go on this trip. I didn't know he had 5. I thought he was a single guy ready to just, you have responsibility. Jorge, I think you're right. So I said, okay, and there's no sense getting upset. I said, well, what can we do? He said, well, actually, tomorrow night there's a big artist party, and they have it about every 6 weeks or so down there. So about 100 artists come in from all over the place. So he's introducing me to all these artists, and he would ask, because I don't speak good Spanish, as you can tell. But anyhow, so one guy about 18 said, well, yeah, sure, I can go. He's single. And I said, perfect. So he could hardly speak English, but I said, oh, well, we'll get around it. So the point is, we get out of Juarez about 4 o'clock the next day, and we're driving and speaking perfect English. I said, Mario, why didn't you speak English at the party? Oh, I don't want to embarrass my friends and be a show-off. I said, well, how did you learn English? I was a shoeshine boy in El Paso. So we get down to this Choguita, which was, I knew, the most primitive area of the Tarahumara. And so we meet Ventura Leon, which is Adventurous Lion. And so Mario was talking to Ventura Leon, and he says, his name is Mario Parra. And the chief says, you always have to see the chief, of course. And the chief says, oh, Parra. He said, there was a very famous Parra who was down here who helped my people. And he married a Tarahumara. That's why Mario was part Tarahumara. But anyhow, well, that's my grandfather. And he says, oh, my word.
Crickets.
So to brief it up, what was the neatest thing? He said, well, I have my son Silas take you around. Anybody who want to sculpt, he'll set it up to do it, because they would never volunteer to do it. And he would basically almost give them orders. You're going to model for this artist. And of course, Mario, by the way, was a good artist. So we had a ball, both of us just working out there. But for 4 years, that's what I did.
Yeah, you lucked out. You could have gotten the one that was the local thief or something.
Well, the truth of it is, Raul was a nice guy,
Yeah.
but he didn't have that connection.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have gotten any better probably if I went under by myself.
Yeah.
So this guy here, you did a sculpture of him?
Well, I
from
I
life?
did a lot of drawings and watercolors.
Oh, drawings and watercolors, yeah.
And whatever happened to him, when I leave the studio, I don't control my work at all.
Yeah.
It's just gone.
You can't.
Yeah, that was good fortune.
This one has an interesting story.
I saw him painting this one too.
You need to tell us about this in advance. We had about 3 of the smaller pieces of
God, I love that one
of Mark's. We had about 3 smaller pieces, and he tells us, you need a major piece of mine. And it was so disarming, and it's so genuine. It wasn't that he was trying to make a sale.
Yeah.
He just thought, for our collection, we just needed a more major piece. And so that was pretty funny. And so he sent this again. We had no idea what it was. These are the Japanese wedding kimonos, the dolls for the wedding ceremony. And apparently in real life they do it back to back like that. But he liked this piece a lot, because I know Southwest Art did one of Richard Schmid's students, and Mark sent this one to represent Mark's work.
Oh, yeah.
So he was proud of this, but we're so fortunate
gosh, look at that.
to have that.
Look at the amount of decisions went into that painting. Every brushstroke is a decision. Value-wise, chroma-wise, whether it's bright or a neutral color. It's just incredible.
That is a masterpiece.
Look at that pot up in the upper right. Oh man.
Just looking at it, it's just.
Oh, jeez. And that, actually, I have a painting he did of one of the dolls, Japanese dolls. I love that piece. And with a yellow rose at the base of the still life. It's a killer. And we were very lucky. I mean, Lenny and I have talked about it. And back when it was the group of 8, the Denver 8, we were called. And boy, I mean, we never realized what a great group we were without being egotistical about it. But I mean, what are the chances of being with 8 fellow artists that are really all at a high level, doing very different things?
Bill Scherer,
yeah,
and Ken Bond, Buffalo Kablinsky.
Yes.
Yes.
Us too.
Yes.
Ned
And Ned.
This again was one that we commissioned that we had no idea the subject or the size. It's his daughter sitting down
Yep,
and a
that's
good
like
friend, and they're getting ready to go out for that, probably high school. He said they're portraits, that his daughter's a little more solemn, and the girlfriend's a little more up. And this is in his house there. And he's standing up, there's a stairwell, and he's standing up a couple steps on the stairwell.
Oh yeah,
It gives
a little higher.
A little perspective there on that.
Right.
And again, that was a surprise. Again, I can create that, never know what it's going to be.
But again, look at the elements at each piece of clothing over the armchair and the drawer open. I mean, everything is an element. And one dress on a coat hanger. So
Yeah,
it's all shapes and elements that he was trying to put together.
That chair was a different
They
color.
don't all have a liner.
Yeah, right.
The chair was a different
Yeah,
color?
he changed it to green because he thought it would look better. I mean, we've been in his house and he was telling us how he changed things that, this was at the foot of the stairs. I can't remember what all he told us.
They said the chair was brown in real life, but
he changed a lot of things
Yeah.
because he needed it for his composition.
Well, the green was a good choice because that red dress, whatever it is a complement to the greenish. If you look at the color wheel, it'll be right across from the color wheel.
Yeah, I thought those light sources were interesting. The
Oh, yeah.
incandescent and the
Yeah.
natural in
And the
different
natural.
directions.
Boy, you talk about bending your mind. And then that room in the back, I mean, look.
We were out in Bluff, Utah. He was explaining to me all the different plants and
Yeah.
everything. It was just the coolest thing ever,
That would be cool.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway, this is Mark Daly's. This is his daughter was in the Peace Corps for 2 years in a small town in Togo, Africa, and I can't pronounce the name. But we about 20 of Mark's paintings, and 6 of them are commission work. And this is one of the commission ones where we just told them to do whatever he wanted to do and whatever size. And for some reason, artists kind of like that, I guess. And we never know what it is until it shows up. George tipped us off, I guess, and we never knew until we created it.
Wow.
But his daughter was there for 2 years doing missionary work. It's just a poor area. I mean, these kids have no toys, no TV, no electricity, very poor area. And the daughter, Brett, did the 2 years of the Peace Corps. She later applied to medical school and got in, and they were worried about it. And she went to Colorado College, good grades, and 2 years in the Peace Corps, and it's a slam dunk that she'd get in. And she is a physician, general practitioner.
That is so cool, and you commissioned him for that. That is so
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, I don't know, artists kind of like that.
And you got this masterpiece. It's like Da Vinci and Michelangelo having these sponsors, that push them to do their best work.
Yeah, it was fun opening the crate. I wonder what's in it.
Oh my God, that's
Because
cool.
we had no idea what he was. He'd say, "Well, I think I'm going to do an African mask. Oh, I think I'm going to do a bird." And we'd open it, and it would be something totally different.
Well, that's neat that you trusted. You knew how good he was, and you're just like, whatever it is, it'll be great. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
This is Mark's also. This is the Obermeyer house where he didn't live there anymore. The Obermeyer ski clothes and stuff like that. That's in Mark's neighborhood.
Oh.
And he actually put that little model there, that man that's showing the show, is actually, he hired him a model step in there.
Oh, great. Yeah.
That is-
Beautiful. And this one's a killer.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's a Grand Lake, an outlet of Grand Lake.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know like you all do, but the heavy laden brush
Yeah.
and the
Oh,
impasto,
yeah.
it mixed the colors there. Just,
That is amazing. I mean,
And you think of how complex and yet how he simplified it in his own way. You know, it's, fantastic.
just as an abstract, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's so cool. Oh man.
yeah, I love the
From the tent. I mean, some days it was 50 or it could be more or less. Of course, the trouble is I had to take a whiz first thing in the
Oh
morning.
no.
So you had to be polite and shake hands with everybody. Greg, I'll show you a Tara Homara handshake. It's going to be a tap, so you just go, you just like that. You do the same thing like that, yeah. Quidaba. You say, Quidaba, compadre. You're a male. Quidaba, compadre.
Come on, Dad.
Yeah. So then I would finally be able to go to my outdoor restroom.
That's pretty cool. It's kind of like people doing high fives, except you're doing them
Well, that's
like a
kind of what it
handshake.
is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think the reason they do
Yeah.
that is for sanitary reasons.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, there's
yeah.
two reasons, because I got to really talking about that, asking about that. One of the things is they didn't want to possess your soul. They felt that, you know, in America we do the big warm handshake, really strong. And they didn't know how Americans shook hands, but they just said, we don't like to grab too much, so you allow the person their freedom. I thought that was very, as a concept, I thought that was really
Well, it's kind of true. I mean, too, some people use handshakes as like a way to like show dominance, you know,
right,
you know, like
exactly.
shake too hard or pull the hand back,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
that is a very neutral, very
Yeah,
respectful
I mean, they're
thing. Yeah.
Pretty respectful people.
Yeah, yeah.
But you had to do the same with them, of course.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise it didn't work.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's neat.
and this is there's Goat Girl, George's Goat Girl. That's quite the pastel.
Yeah, that's-
George, tell us about this one.
Did you do that from the nun's father?
Well, no, but she lived across the Rio Larique from where I live. And actually, I did almost all of her family. But, you know, she would come and I would go up to this pasture and, you know, and she had her pet goat. And I just liked that connection she had with this goat. But that's her father, who was basically herding up the sheep, moving to some other pasture, I guess. And then that, you know, their dogs are kind of cur dogs down there. But I just thought, well, you know, there ought to be the kind of dogs that they have. And I really had a great time. But I sculpted them, painted them, did watercolors of, the whole family. There's one piece I did called the guy has a violin. I forgot what I actually called it, but he's taking a drink and there's a violin hanging off of his back. And he was, he probably was only 60. I'm 84.
Yeah.
But I figured he wasn't my age because I don't think they lived that long. But he looked like he was about 90. Had these pencil thin legs. And he would come down off of this trail. How he got down the thing, I'll never know. He would cross the river. And a lot of them liked to just come up to my tent and sit there as I was doing somebody else. So it was a nice way to just have a relationship. You know, and I always brought down a lot of sardines. I asked the head priest, what do they really need? Because Harmson's was a candy company in Denver. Well, what do? They brought down boxcars of candy to give to the kids. I thought, oh boy, they better send a dentist with it, you know, because they weren't used to candy.
Sugar, yeah.
But these people still live in caves. I mean, they were way off the beaten path. But what the priest told me, bring them sardines as one of the, I also brought down bolts of material for the women. I brought down really good pocket knives for the men because they always, need a pocket knife. Brought down safety pins that they use for their hair, for their, what do you want to call it, headbands. And I think I brought about 6 or 7 different things, but I actually brought cases of sardines because when they get really hungry in the spring, when there's no more food, a lot of them would be actually living off of those high protein. And the priest said, plus they take that tin metal and they make stuff out of it, and they're so inventive. I mean, they make some beautiful, elaborate stuff you would never think would come out of a sardine tin. But anyhow, so that's the things that brought down.
Those are good
But
ideas.
yeah, but anyhow, that family was just absolutely lovely.
Is that the same family of the sculpture you traded me for? Of the three with the goats
yeah,
on their
one of the kids
heads?
was in there.
3 kids there, and then the goats.
'Cause actually
one of the goats on her shoulders. Yeah.
Because I had, that was the one, and then I think a little boy was sitting down with a tied up rooster, and
Right.
the other one was a girl, with a sack pack on it.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
bringing some kind of a festival product.
Yeah.
But they were all done separately from life. But when I got home, I thought, well, how do I turn this into a composition? So I kept playing around with it until I could, make that piece.
What you're saying though about people watching, that's the same with us. Is like when we went to Tibet, or we've gone to the Himba and the Maasai and stuff. It's a different energy. We hire someone from the place to take us and translate. And then when you first drive in, people would be afraid. And what is this about and everything? And we brought in like cornmeal and all the things that
stuff
they
can
say
really use.
because they couldn't have a way to use their money really.
Yeah.
And but it was interesting because then even if people were afraid, like in Tibet when we would go off and find the herders and stuff, they would run into their tents thinking we were the government, because they were rounding people up. So that was about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And but then once one person who was brave would come out, I would do sketches of them. I'd do drawings of them. And then everybody's
great.
peeking out. Everyone want to watch.
Yeah.
And the person we hired too, because he said a National Geographic place had hired them once to go and take photographs. And he said, well, what happened with that is they said, okay, fine, you can give us things. And they took photographs for a half hour. And then they're like, okay, good, go, leave now. But once we were sketching, they were like, we know what they're doing. And people like watching drawings.
Yeah,
so
they
we would
do.
stay there for days at a time. And people just forget about
Yeah.
it. And then they go about their regular things. It's what you were having. And then you're like, oh my God, people are bringing in this, or they're dancing. I would go over and take pictures of the ceremony. But you couldn't have stayed there if you weren't an artist. Because
that's exactly what I felt.
And when someone from another village would come by, everyone wanted me to show them in their sketch pad all the different drawings we did, and people would point out. And I would give a few of them to people. The ones that you wouldn't keep or anything, but so they would have something, and they were so thankful. But they were migratory. I don't know if the Tarahumara were. They were more.
well, they do. Yeah, they have a winter place and a summer place.
And these were cattle herders, so they'd move around. But it was so funny. Whenever I give one of the charcoal drawings, they were so thankful, and they'd show it to everybody, and then they'd fold it up into a little square. And they put it in their little goat pouch.
And that was the end of that sketch.
Well, no, then they would take it out, and everybody would come, and they would show it again, and then fold it back up, because they didn't have things to carry. They had everything they had to carry. But little by little, it got more abstract. And I was actually kind of thinking, this actually looked kind of more interesting now. You can see it, you can still see it, and it became kind of ghostly.
That's kind of cool.
But it sounds like that. Like you're saying, people would come and watch you, and they understood what you were doing. If you'd gone down and just were taking photographs, I bet you people wouldn't have been as
amenable.
Yeah.
Wife, it's easy to say and very true that I would not be here or who I am today without her. So thank you. I'd like to thank my son Luke, who helped get us safely here. We were figuring on our drive down from Wyoming that he has volunteered to go on 11 cross-country tracks with me. We've driven a little over 20,000 miles, and I don't think I could find a better traveling companion if I searched the world. So Luke, thank you for that. I want to kind of start in getting all of us to think about art in a larger or a more in-depth position. In both my studios in Maine and Wyoming, I have a number of quotes. It started as a practice when...
Here's some of Sue's paintings.
So you carpentry. Was that you carpentry?
I'm pretty good at it. Yeah, my dad used to help me do that kind of thing. He was really good at it.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is all new. Now we get to.
your book because it's just maybe a 45-minute drive from Atlanta to Congress. And they have 3 major museums up there. How long's your granddaughter? Let's see, she is 21. Okay, because I was going to say they have a science museum, they have a water museum.
So what's your guys' names? You guys work here?
Yes. Nikki.
Nikki?
Nikki.
And I'm Tashana.
Tashana.
Yes.
And you were saying you loved Thomas's work here?
Yes.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
We actually got to meet him.
Did you? Oh,
Yes,
good.
we did.
Yeah.
He's very nice, friendly, and humble.
Isn't he?
Yes,
yeah.
he
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did you guys meet Thomas too?
Yes, I did, and I really loved his art. He was really down to earth to me, and I'm like, wow, I met an artist. Like,
How did you guys come to work here at the National Cowboy Museum?
Well, I became working here because of one of my best friends.
Oh yeah? Oh, that's neat.
Each other for a long
I've
time.
been here for maybe a year and about 4 or 5 months.
Oh.
And I think when I first started was doing Prix de West.
Oh, really?
And so I got to see a show for the first time.
That's so
never
cool.
Seen an art exhibit or art sale or none of that.
Yeah.
It was awesome. The working here is awesome as well.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I plan on staying
Yeah.
and retiring if they have me because I definitely love
Yeah.
here.
Yes,
Well, thank
we love
you.
to see the different art, the different.
I am thrilled to invite this year's Prix de West Purchase Award winner, Thomas Blackshear II, to join us on stage.
After what happened at lunch today, I won the award. After I walked out, I was told that, you know, tonight you're going to speak again. And I was like, I said, I thought I already did it. I thought I got up there. They said, no, you have to say something else. I go, okay. So I just wanted to thank the Prix de West Committee for honoring me with this award. But I also just wanted to thank some people, friends. I've been really blessed in my life with some really good friends. And there's a few people I just wanted to thank. And the first person is my buddy, Dean Mitchell, because for me, Dean is a trailblazer. I mean, for almost, over 20-something years, he's been the only black artist in these celebrated shows, the top shows. He's the only one. And then I was blessed to come on, but it's like he opened up the door. And I just want to thank him for that. He's my buddy. And then you've heard me say this before, but the second person, I have to thank my buddy Morgan, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be up here, because he's the one who brought me into this new world of Western art. So again, thank you, Morgan, wherever you are. I mean, I will be eternally grateful for what you did for me. And then I just wanted to give you a little background on the painting that I had done, a much needed break. And I have to give credit to my buddy. Everybody knows Jimmy Omi, my buddy. He drives up here with me, because he's the one who suggested, a few months ago, he said, Thomas, why don't you do a painting of a woman? And I was like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking about that. And I said, maybe I will. So I think I made the right choice. But I'll give you a little background on the painting and the model. This was a woman that I had met at church, and I had noticed her beauty. She just had a really nice bone structure and stuff, and she would walk around. She was always wearing a scarf on her head. And I noticed her because there was a painting that was, I just felt I needed to take photographs of her. So I asked her if she wouldn't mind posing for me. And she was real shy. And I showed her some of the work I did, and I told her I was an artist. I said, I'd pay you for your time. Would you please let me take some photographs of you? And so she decided that she would do that. And she came up to my studio. And she was wearing this scarf on her head and stuff. And I said, why do you always wear that scarf on your head? And she was very embarrassed. And she said, well, my hair doesn't grow, and I just don't like showing it because it doesn't grow much. And I was just kind of shocked, not because she was wearing the scarf, because she was so beautiful and she didn't even know it. And I just said, you really don't know how beautiful you are, do you? And she said, you know, and I said, look, don't you realize if you were bald-headed, you would still be beautiful? I said, you would be a model, you know, you could be a model, you know. And I said, I really wanted to take some shots of you without the scarf. And she said, well, I don't feel comfortable. I said, no, that's okay, but I just want you to know, you should never feel inferior because of what you're dealing with. You're beautiful either way, it doesn't matter. And apparently the talk worked, because the next time she came to my studio, she didn't have the scarf on her head. But anyway, I just wish, I lost touch with her. I knew she moved to Texas, and I lost touch with her, but I just wish there was some way I could find out where she was and contact her to let her know that her face is hanging in a museum. Had some very, very low lows in my career, but I have also had some incredibly high highs, and this is one of them. Thank you so very much.
Please welcome Museum Board.
His 60-year career began with his mother, who bestowed a love of nature and art during frequent museum visits. Trained at the American Academy of Art and Art Institute of Chicago, he toiled as an illustrator until heading west, drawing and painting constantly and studying at the University of Arizona. He also began sculpting, what he calls drawing in 3D, and at his second Prix de West competition, received the Purchase Award for his sculpture, Courtship Flight. Carlson and his wife Pam married in 1981. Devoted to his art, she takes the peripheral load off him, allowing him to focus on his work. By 2009, Carlson felt called by painting. 2 years after this late career pivot, he again received the Purchase Award for the painting Umatilla Rock, becoming the only artist to win Purchase Awards in different mediums. Since receiving the gold medal for sculpture his first year, Carlson has received 21 Prix de West awards for sculpture and painting. The accolades received from other institutions are too numerous to mention. According to B. Byron Price, Carlson is one of today's most important artists, comparing him to Bierstadt and Moran. Lucky for art lovers, Carlson continues to produce at the highest level to this day.
Oh, good evening. I had to put that picture of me when I was 16 years old. That boy isn't going to amount to a damn thing. I used to hear that every now and then. At any rate, and Susan was talking about how few of these awards were given. 3 out of the 4 were actually very, very good friends. Bob Kuhn, he and his wife Libby had been up to our place in Idaho. I did a sculpture, as you saw in the piece there. Tom Lovell, I used to go to his studio in Santa Fe quite often. What was great about Tom, he would make literally scale models of the scene he was going to do out of balsa wood and cloth and so forth. I couldn't believe the amount of work that he put into these things. And then Bettina Steinke, I knew her, of course, before Prix de West, because actually her husband oh boy, encouraged me to be in this show. And of course, Don Teague was a longtime friend, and I just love the production, or the talk that Scott gave on him. And again, as you saw, if you did see that particular talk, he went to all kinds of lengths to make sure he could get the right feeling in his watercolors. So, with what I feel so good about the Prix de West show and back in the nowadays, it was a way to meet people, artists, that you had a great respect, who you never would have any way to have met just on your own. But by being involved in the show, it gave you an opportunity to really get to know these people on a very first-hand level, which also, of course, included Robert Lockheed, who was a good friend, John Clymer, Wilson Hurley. So, I mean, to me, it was just a wonderful, you know, I was a kid, and all these other guys were very advanced artists, so it was a thrill. You know, just hate to read this, I'm sorry, but, you know, I'm nervous. Here's what the Prix de West means to me, is that it has, since the beginning of the show in 1974, is a high-quality venue, not only in its beauty and physical presence, but just as, if not more, importantly, the people behind the scenes, through their commitment to Western fine art and their support of the artists involved in the show, always making one feel welcomed and respected. And that's what I really feel about coming down here, sort of like you're coming home again. So, and I think all the artists feel that way. As waves of gratitude come over me, I think of all the people who have been so helpful in shaping, encouraging, and making a difference. Now that I am trading in memories, what I will always remember is the many years of enjoying my fellow artists' camaraderie and looking forward to seeing their new works, because that's always exciting to see who's coming up with what. This award will be a memory bank for I am deeply honored and truly humbled with this Lifetime Achievement Award, and I will cherish it always. Thank you.
You guys keep talking. I'm gonna video you a little.
Okay.
Sue's gonna want to see you guys.
Hi, Sue.
Sue says hi. She actually sent me a text and says, take pictures and video these guys. Someday in history, it will be important. People will want to see it.
Of course.
Yeah. So tell us your most profound thing, I guess. What were you talking
Something
about?
profound. How about
We're talking about Sue's books.
We're talking about books.
Books.
And
Oh, yeah.
what we
Sue
like
and
about
Sue.
books.
I think you guys have, yeah, we were saying you have a similar, like, a
I was
book.
just reading this because I
Oh,
am
Eric
going
Yeah, I read that
on
book, yeah.
a transatlantic cruise.
That's a good book. Actually, I read that book, yeah.
And,
you're gonna take
I
the
am.
cruise.
I'm going to do it on the Queen Mary 2.
Oh my gosh.
My 100 years after my grandmother did. She didn't go on the Queen Mary 2, but I'm going, and it's very expensive. It's crazy.